Let's do it, mate.
Boom. Bosh, we're back. Squeeze the Neck podcast, and today we're back home again in Wandsworth. We are at the wonderful Guild of Fighters, I think it's called, right?
That's it.
With my new mate, Rory Lynn.
That's it.
I nearly called you Rory Performance, but
Rory Performance,
Lynn Performance.
Yeah. That's what everyone thinks.
Well, I had one recently up in Manchester, and the guy that introduced us from a gym called Advanced Basics, and I said, I'm here at Advanced Basics, and he was like, no.
It's not my name, mate.
Shit, yeah, I was like, fuck. But anyway, we're back, and as I say, we're near home again. I've been home before with Jamie Lawrence. Shout out Jamie Lawrence, was close and local. This is about just as local. We're over the road from it, and we're here with former professional rugby player, strength and conditioning coach.
Yep.
My new mate. We'll go on. But yeah, tell us about where we are first, mate, before we get into you.
Yeah, mate. So we're at a jiu-jitsu gym called Guild. So it's a wicked space. It's focused on gi and no gi. They cover a load of classes. It's run by two guys called Gustavo and Inda, top boys. And they wanted me down to do the S&C down here. So I used the space, hire the space, and it's a really wicked place.
Nice. As I come in, you've got that kind of gym smell. It's already at rock and roll, isn't it? But as I said, you're a rugby player, professional, all that kind of business. But recently, you told me you're a dirty grappler like the rest of us. So welcome to the club.
I've been contaminated, mate. Although strictly gi recently.
Have you? Oh man, we'll sort you out.
You know what it is? I wear gym kit all bloody day. Yep. So I'm a bit like, right, I want to throw on a bit of kit and wear something a bit different.
Feel important again. Yeah,
feel important. Feel like a beginner again. It's quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's good, mate. I think, look, I don't wear gi much. Since I last got graded, I think I've worn the gi 4 times. Yeah. And this was about a year ago I got graded. Yeah. And four times, 2 of them times I was covering a kids' class. So I don't really wear the gi much myself.
Yeah, but I do think I'd switch it up. Though. I think to start with, I'm just like.
I think it's important. That's what I was getting at.
Learn a bit in the gi and put on a bit of kit, and it's a bit of fun.
I enjoy the gi more when I don't do it much. Yeah. So, as I've said on here a million times, I like turning up and having a tear up in the gi. Yeah. I'm not massive on the spider guard and learn De La Hiva and all that kind of stuff.
You just want to grab a collar and choke someone out.
You know what I'm saying? Grab the name of the podcast, Squeeze the Neck, bro. You know what I mean? We don't reinvent the wheel around here.
Exactly.
But tell us about you, mate, because you told me you're younger than me, which breaks my heart. I still, what they call that, like fantasize about being a 21-year-old, but people are actually coming on the show now that are younger than me. So
they all think I'm 21 now. I'm 32. Perfect. It's not like I'm a spring chicken.
Mate, that's a spring chicken to me. Fucking hell.
We're going all right.
But you're retired from rugby.
Yes.
Why is that?
Mate, the injuries. I started playing professional rugby at the age of 16. So it was a real early. Left home, fully immersed in professional rugby at Leicester Tigers.
And you was full time, I take it. Actual professional,
full
not
time. Full time. And that was pretty brutal as a 16-year-old. Your body is you're still growing, and then you're expected to be thrown in. I made my debut for the first team at 17 years old, which is just wild. So I'm kind of small, skinny young lad who's kind of got no idea going against guys who are international rugby players who are twice the size of me. So it was kind of no wonder after about 6-7 years of kind of doing this, my body well and truly broke down.
That quick, so you're still like early 20s.
I think it was 23. I think maybe 24. I think I kind of retired from playing. I kind of dotted around playing a bit of semi-pro stuff, but my body just gave up on me. So,
really? Yeah. And so how much do you weigh sitting here now?
About 92, 93 kilos.
And what was you sort of when you're 16, 17?
Funny enough, I was my playing weight was about 86, 87.
Right, so small,
small,
but like
not small,
for rugby,
but that was even when I was in my early 20s. When I was 17, I was probably weighing about 70 to 75 kilos.
So proper.
I grew a lot from age of 18 to kind of 21. So
was that ever a problem? Did ever people look at you and go, mate, this might not be for you?
Luckily, the position I played it was all right, but I was a bit of a beanstalk.
Right.
I was skinny. So I had to put on a bit of size and kind of in the gym. That was kind of the big goal back there. Was kind of S&C key. You just lift some weights.
Right.
It's kind of how I ended up here today. So I kind of actually developed a bit of love for it as well. So.
Right. Yeah. And what was you just like eating non-stop and all that? Are you like constant bulk season?
Yeah, mate. It was just eating, putting you on the mass gainer shakes, all of those sort
of
things.
Maxi Muscles back in the day.
It's quite funny. The group of lads, like they're all on the old Maxi Muscle, kind of the heavy mass gainer. You've got the acne all over your back. It's just, mate.
Yeah. I can imagine.
It's a weird time when you look back at it. It's kind of at that age to kind of get put through that is pretty intense.
I don't think it happened now, would it? I mean, I don't know. You can probably speak more on rugby.
From what I understand, I don't know. I haven't been involved with it for a while, but from what I understand now, it's kind of no earlier than 18. now.
Right.
So I think 18
So
is
18,
kind of the
you're a man.
cut-off. Yeah, exactly. When you're actually technically a man, whereas at 16 you're just a kid, mate.
Yeah, but you are 18 in reality. You ever seen an 18?
You are, I know. I guess you're more physically developed.
Yeah, it's a slow, and it's a funny age, isn't it? Because some 18-year-olds look like men, some 18-year-olds look like boys.
Exactly, mate, exactly. You kind of got and I think that doesn't even matter what sport you do.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But what's your body like now after it? Have you recovered? Are you back to normal?
No, mate, I'm in pieces.
Still, fucking hell, 10 years, or not 10 years
I'm in
on,
pieces.
But,
I've constantly, every day, I'm having to do a bit of body maintenance just to kind of, to get through things. So I've kind of, if you think of every injury you could potentially have, pretty much name it, I've had it. So
really? It's one of them?
It's wild. So the main issue I've got nowadays is I've snapped my leg in half. That was a complete tear, bone through the skin. Oh. Sorry, listeners.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some photos for links if we can. Yeah.
So now I've got a metal shin in there, but the problem is it's made my leg shorter now. So now my spine's skew width and everything's just kind of.
Mate, and you're still 32. What are you going to be like when you're 70?
Honestly,
Not to put a downer on it.
I'm dreading it, mate. I'm dreading it. I'm hoping they bring up some bionic sort of thing.
Well, stem cells seems to be a thing right now, doesn't it?
Everyone's, I'll make my leg a little bit longer or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So.
Have you lost height from it, or is are you just more lopsided?
It's just lopsided on one side.
Right. So you're going to have some fucking war stories when you're older, aren't you? Limping about, which is going to be great. But take us all the way back, mate. Like, where did you grow up, and how did you get into rugby, or was rugby your first thing?
Yeah, I played every sport as a kid, mate. So I grew up around in the Peak District, a little town in Ashbourne, countryside. My parents played every sport; they loved sport. So, as a kid, mate, I played everything. Sport was sport was my life. Whether it was football, rugby, athletics, cricket, anything, I'd have done it. To be fair,
right.
And happened to be kind of someone who was fairly naturally talented at sport, so I always gravitated to that.
One of them arseholes, yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit one of those knobheads who played every sport and was all right at it. So the rugby kind of, I was playing football and rugby to a pretty decent standard, and then kind of had a bit of a choice of which avenue I wanted to go. And at the time, the club that I signed with in rugby was the equivalent of Man United.
Really?
In rugby. So,
who's that?
Leicester Tigers. So they were winning the Premiership every year. And
really?
So it was kind of a no-brainer. I'd follow that avenue. Financially, probably not a good decision.
I was going to say, you fucked up there, son. Like, what level were you playing football?
It was a decent level, some academy level. I was honestly never going to cut it at that level. But
But could you have made it in like the league, the football league?
Oh, mate, if I'd have really pushed for it, the reality is that you'd be in like Division 7, you'd earn the same as a Premiership rugby player.
I was going to say, financial decision, right?
So, so that was kind of my sporting history and kind of coming through. So that kind of why I'm still in sport is because I kind of loved it since I was about 4 years old. So it's kind of ingrained in me.
And was combat sports ever on your radar or not?
Yeah, it's always kind of been in and out. We did a lot of judo when I was at rugby, so we got trained by the Great Britain judo coach in pre-season quite often.
Okay, that's interesting.
Obviously, you couldn't take it up as a sport because our sport was rugby, but we'd always spend pre-season once or twice a week for 10 to 12 weeks kind of doing judo. So it's kind of always been in there, like something that I've liked a lot, just never had the chance to really push to it.
And what brought you to the sort of realisation that rugby was sort of not working out? I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but was it just as simple as like your body's fucked up, or was it a slow
a little bit
process?
of that, but you also kind of, you have to be realistic. You're like, right, there's probably, the injuries don't help, and you'd be like, maybe if I didn't get injured, whatever might have happened, but you kind of, because the injuries set you back so far, it's very hard to then break and get a bit of momentum with it, and eventually you're like, it's just not really happening. The amount of time and effort going into this is just, it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah. So did it become like a chore then? Because
it did a little bit, and I kind of realised that I think I need to kind of, because you could carry on and I'll be 28 years old and then
properly fucked.
Yeah, body's in pieces, and also at 28 you're a bit like, well, what do I do next once I've retired? Yeah. So you kind of had a bit of a conversation with my dad and stuff, and he was a bit like, you know what, try somewhere new and get yourself into the working world.
Because you're still young, aren't you? 24. Like, I think you told me, like at 24 you don't think you're young, but like looking back now, fucking 24's a kid, isn't it?
Yeah, 24. Yeah, oh mate. Like, you'd be a little bit like if you had your time again, maybe you'd do something different. And
you'd have picked football instead of rugby.
Yeah, I mean that would have been number one starting point. Wouldn't have been touched the rugby.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's like little things like that where you kind of look back on it. But then again, I probably wouldn't be where I am today without going down that avenue and kind of being where I am, I feel like it does shape you.
Yeah, and it is what it is at the end of the day. I think sometimes you've got to tread your path, haven't you? You don't have a lot of say.
Of course you do. I'm a big believer in things work out for a reason. So like I said, I could be trying to toll through it and at 28 years old and then pack it in, and then I wouldn't be here where I am now and all of that. So it's kind of a bit more like, I'm glad I pulled the plug at the right time.
Was it a hard decision? Was you sort of struggling with it for a while?
Not really, mate.
Oh, right.
Like, I mean, my missus will... She'll tell me off because I've been flirting with the idea of just coming back and playing a bit of semi-pro rugby again.
Oh, right.
But again, I decided against it because of the amount of training time and all of that sort of stuff to get back into it, as well as being 32 rather than 24.
And you know what's going to happen? You're bound to twist your ankle on day one.
I know. That's why she told me, nah, you can't be doing that.
Nah, it's not worth it, is it?
No,
not worth
sadly not. Yeah,
but we're on a jiu-jitsu mat, so you can get a whole new bunch
mate.
of injuries.
Effectively, I'm just doing another form of contact.
Your ears are all right, actually, aren't you? For someone who's played rugby and grappling, you're doing all right with the ears.
Yeah, mate, I've got no collies at all.
Well, I normally try and sit that side because my collie's this side, so I fucked up today already.
Yeah, I got lucky, mate. I avoided the collies a little bit on this one, but not much. Not much.
So when you're playing rugby, what was the sort of height of your achievements and stuff? Was you sort of like thinking of playing for England and all that, or was that not realistic?
I mean, as a youngster, you always do. I played a bit of England age group stuff,
so you was there?
Yeah, the younger age group stuff, under 16s and these sort of things, and a little bit more. And then made my debut for the first team at 17. So at that time, you're a little bit like, Jesus Christ, things are going quite well here.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but what's like 17 playing in a first team for football's about right, but for rugby that seems too young to me.
For rugby, it's young. Yeah,
is it? Yeah,
it's really young. There's not many people under 18 who've had a crack at first team rugby. Right. So yeah, I made my debut at that time. So I was like, bloody hell, I might be all right at this. But then, eventually, again, it always comes back to the injuries because you get injured. If you've got the starting shirt, you get injured. Someone takes your spot. You're out for 9 months. They play well. You're suddenly all the way behind.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. So you can put yourself right to the back of the queue just for a few injuries. So it's a couple of big ones, and. Yeah, suddenly, out of like a 7-year career, I think I was out injured for about 4.5, 5 years.
It's rough, that,
it's a bit like, it is, mate. It's like, it always comes back to that. So the aspirations, and you do quite well. So I probably did best early in my career, and then it was kind of a matter of clinging on a little bit.
Sort of like managing.
Seeing what you can get. Yeah. You might get your break again and all of that.
And what's the deal, right? Like, we don't have to get too specific, or we can if you want, but like in terms of money and stuff, are you making a proper living from it? You don't have to sort of have a paper round on the side?
Oh, mate, it's tough, if I'm honest. It is tough for the lads, unless you're right at the top. It's a hard grind. Like you can make fairly good money, in the Premiership, but as a young lad coming through, you're kind of. But the problem is you're full time as well, and I was studying at the time as well, so it was like, well, how the hell can I get a job alongside this? So
but you're 17. I'm assuming you're living at home and whatever.
I moved to Leicester actually, so it was quite. You have to kind of. Get a few. They did like a payment plan to help pay for the home and stuff. So they'd help you out with that, and then give you a little bit of spare change, spending money, beer money at the weekend.
Is that right? Yeah. Because what's like at 17? Are you living by yourself, or you got housemates and all that?
Yeah, we had housemates.
Because that's a dangerous game, and all.
Yeah,
17,
well, that's the thing, and you're in the middle of Leicester, like, mate. It's kind of. It's pretty exciting. You're around, obviously, rugby culture.
But you're not even old enough to drink, so you can't even go.
But I am with some lads, like you said, some 17-year-olds. They're 6'6" with beards down here.
Yeah,
so you're like, well, you just follow those boys.
Yeah, that's it.
You just still have a few beers at the weekend.
Yeah. And rugby, I'm assuming, is quite a drinking culture, in it anyway.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah,
mate, massively.
And when I say quite a drinking
maybe
culture,
a tad less so now, but back then it was chaos. It was every Saturday night after the game, lads would be on the piss till about 4 or 5 in the morning.
Oh, proper session.
Yeah, recover the next day, and then they're back in training Monday. It was.
But you get away with it because you're young, so you're fine.
Yeah, mate, I was all right back then.
Yeah.
All right back then. But yeah, the S&C coaches on a Monday morning when you're rocking up, they'd look at your pupils and be like, yeah, he's been drinking.
Is he just drinking rugby, or are they doing other things and all?
Nah, mainly drinking, mate.
Yeah, because that's what I think.
Just love chopping pints, mate. To be honest, that's.
Well, I spoke to another, not on here, but I spoke to another S&C coach once who worked with a rugby team. I can't remember who it was. Might have been Wasps somewhere. It doesn't matter anyway. Yeah. He said like he used to make them after they'd finished the game or training or whatever it was. He'd make them. They had to down 4 pints of water, and then they could have whatever booze they wanted. So he's like, by the time they've had it, they're chucking them down. They're like. He said they're barely drinking
it's
after.
Quite a smart tactic.
Yeah, it was
Obviously,
a simple
a
one.
rugby lad loves a pint, so you kind of do that, then they ain't going to drink quite as much.
That's it. He said like they're struggling.
Too early, and then you're in trouble, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah. But like rugby fascinates me in terms of like, not fascinates me, but like if you look online at sort of rugby players training, they seem like they train properly. Like if you look at footballers, even at the top level now, and some of these footballers are earning 300 grand a week or more, some of them. And like if you watch their training, not that their training's bad, obviously they're fucking phenomenal, but they don't seem to be doing the same sort of athletic training, if you like, as a rugby player.
I know what you mean. It's almost ingrained from a young age with the through the kind of academy system that S&C is a huge thing in rugby, because obviously you've got to get big because these lads are massive. So if you're small and not powerful, then you just get ran over.
Even if you're good, it doesn't matter.
Whereas I think in football, you can get away with it a little bit more. Although I do believe every footballer should be focusing on their S&C. I do think that's an important thing. But football, you can get away with it a little bit because it's a bit more kind of skill driven. So it's a sport where if you're real skillful, you can kind of get away with things a little bit more.
Well, what I've heard as well, and I think it's probably changing now, like not that we're sounding like dinosaurs, we're only in their fucking early 30s, but you know what I'm saying? Like when you speak to people that were like my age, a little bit older or whatever, that have been in academies, they sort of, it sounds like it's a bit of a puppy mill. So it's just a numbers game. So it's like they just throw you all out at the talented ones, and if you're not that good, they're not spending time making you a better athlete. You're just not on the team, you drop down a league and all that kind of shit.
I did an internship at Fulham for a bit, and in the academy, S&C, and mate, the kids, they could not care less unless they got a ball at their feet. They literally could not care less. You're trying to make them do stuff, and it's...
Oh, right, and it's what? Shut up.
Yeah. But I met a guy the other day, though, a guy called Tom Joyce, who's very, very, very good S&C coach, and he works with footballers, and he's got a few that he looks after. And he said, basically, in football, there's a few that are really switched on with it. So you think Cristiano Ronaldo, like he's obviously mad for it. And there's a few others. So he deals with Anthony Elanga. And he says this guy is so switched on. He's wanting to do his S&C. He doesn't do it at Nottingham Forest. He'll do it with him instead because he gets a much better session in. So I think a few of them have started employing coaches privately to do it.
That's interesting though, isn't it? The money in football, you'd think it'd be done to a T, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, how can you let someone have his own personal... I know it probably works out well, but like, if you're just some cowboy and you've got fucking Mbappe, do you know what I mean? And you fuck his leg up. Like, how's that? I don't know.
I watched a video of Neymar doing his S&C, like to come back from his knee injury, and I was looking at it. I was like, this guy's getting paid $2 million a week, and he's doing stuff like this. I was a bit like, God.
$2 million a week.
Yeah, I know. This is madness, isn't it? So you're like, but I think there are some footballers that are really switched on with it, but there's some that really couldn't care less. I think it's just a bit more discrepancy between the two.
Yeah. Again, like with when I was boxing as a teenager, like if you was lifting weights, you was a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like that was like,
you're skipping, you press ups, you're running.
Run 1 million miles a week, don't eat, don't... Well, I was getting advice as well of like, to make weight, like I'd train for 3 hours on a Thursday night, I'm fighting on the Saturday, don't drink water till Saturday, you make weight. It's like, what? Like you look at the time, you're like, yeah, cool. I used to I've said this on here before, I used to turn the tap on and like lick the tap, spit it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like just to feel it, and I'm not allowed to drink.
It is, mate. The old school nature of boxing is, that's the most wild, I think. Less so the S&C stuff, because I do think there's a place for everything.
Yeah.
But some of the making weight stuff and all of that is just, it's wild. Like people's bodies must just have been broken.
And I was, again, I'm not that old, but it's like when I was doing it, it's like the theory was like if you can make the weight, you should. Yeah. So like if I could possibly get to say 69 kilos, you should do it. Exactly. Doesn't matter. I can't fucking walk when I'm there.
At 74 or whatever and being comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I've said this on here a few times, but I tell you, I was in like a London regionals that it was Olympic years used to change the weights all down the levels. It was either 67. 71, 75, or on Olympic years, they'd get rid of that and it'd be 69 to 75.
Right.
I couldn't make 69. So I tried like a lunatic, and again, starving and doing all that business, and I got to 69.8 on the scales, stepped on it. Coach went, I just boxed a 75 then. Bro,
mate.
Like, I'm fucked here. You know?
Mate, I could have eaten the whole way through this camp.
Exactly, so I had to go through that, and I was like, I'm not doing this shit no more.
No, I know, mate. Listen, I still see it a bit now, and I kind of have a bit of a kind of chat with some people and some other fighters that I look after. And some are very much, no, I need to get down to the lowest I need to be, so then I've got a bigger weight advantage. And my kind of thought process is with it, is if you're dropping your weight so much that you're kind of almost close to death, there's no way you're fighting at 100%. No. So then is that advantage of you fighting at 60 to 70% capability bigger advantage than someone maybe fighting at 100% who's a bit smaller?
Yeah.
Like, for me personally, I think just feeling 100% must be the best thing ever.
100%.
I've got a fighter, Chanel Dyer. She doesn't cut weight at all for her fight. She just she'll just stay at her weight the whole way through camp, and she cuts it. She says fight week's the best week ever.
Yeah, good.
She just gets to eat, she gets to chill out. She comes into fight night and she feels fucking $1 million.
And that's for anyone who's fought will know this. You've got so much stress on when it's fight time anyway.
Yeah.
Like you don't need that extra aggro. And like it goes. We're talking about overtraining and stuff too. But like I'm a big believer, and I'd like your opinion too, that you're better off undertraining than overtraining. Yeah. Because if you get in that overtrained, I've been there, and you're flat, and you're just like. You can see things, but you can't do anything about it.
Mate,
you feel fucked.
You have that low sugar feeling. You've got niggles all over the place, and you're just weighing it up, and it's like, is it worth it?
And you just don't care is the biggest thing. Like, especially, I've been lucky. I've only had it a couple of times, maybe in fights back in the day, boxing. But like a lot of times in the gym when I'm overcooked. Because again, boxing, you just train more, right? Every day, twice a day, hard.
Yeah, it's like if you're not working, they're working.
Yeah, but you're in sparring sometimes, and it's just like you're in there, you're getting your head boxed off, and you're just there, and you're just like, I just don't give a fuck. How many rounds have I got left? 2 more, great. I'll get through
then
these.
You're just
you know
trying
what
to
I mean?
Get through it, where you're not going to make progress just trying to get through things. No one ever makes progress trying to get through things. You make progress by doing quality. You're better off, if you're in that situation, rather than trying to get through 10 rounds, you're better off just doing 6 really high quality rounds and then
stopping, for sure.
So I'm a big believer as well in training on finishing on a win.
Yeah.
So kind of finishing on a high, because that always sets a bit of momentum. Because if you go through a training week and you've got 10 to 15 sessions a week, some of the MMA guys, 15 sessions a week, if you're constantly finishing a session on a high, you get to the next one and you're buzzed, ready to go. It always just adds that little extra bit of buzz because you're excited to go again, because you're like, well, I've just had a good session there. I felt really sharp. I've finished my last round where I felt really good, and bang, I move to the next one, and you're like, I'm buzzed again.
Yeah.
In here, you lift some good weight, you move well. Again, you're pretty buzzed. Like, you just build a bit of momentum with that, especially in a training camp. Yeah, because otherwise, if you're doing too much and you start crashing, your session quality drops, and then mentally it messes with you, because you're like, well, I'm not performing well, I'm not doing well, and you're wondering why. And typically, it's not because you're bad at this, because you wouldn't have got to where you've got to. It's because your body's just like, nah, it's not happening.
Yeah, and it also there's a lot to that as well, isn't it? In terms of like, like you hear someone's got a 3-round fight. So standard MMA fights, 3 rounds, title fights, fight, for anyone who doesn't know. And you hear people like, I'm sparring 8 rounds. Now, to me, that's the wrong way to do it, because the pace is off, isn't it? Like,
I know
you tell me what you like, because if you're pushing for 3 rounds hard, you know what you can do for 3 rounds. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I think if you're going to go down the technical route, I get the higher amount of rounds, because you're just getting a bit more volume of high technical work. I do agree in terms of that if it's hard sparring, because you're never going to go past 5 rounds at the level you were. So it's a hard one. Some fighters like it because they know they can go through 8 rounds and they can do that. So 5 sounds a piece of piss, or 3 sounds a piece of piss. So I get both. I think it's more a mentality thing going for that many rounds. Yeah.
Does it come down to timing as well? In terms of like, if I've got a fight in, say, 3 months, I can afford to do sort of 8 rounds, because it's at a different pace, technically.
So. I mean, it's one of those that you'd have to ask the coaches a little bit with their actual specific coaches. But from what I've seen, it does come down to, because the boxing is a bit more. I've noticed the MMA is a bit more general, kind of, and then you choose. So you'll rock up to the gym and you'll choose how many rounds you kind of want to do sometimes as well. So there's a bit more ownership. Whereas the boxing, because it's completely one coach looks after one fighter, and it's kind of that. It's completely tailored to peaking at the right time.
Right.
So I've seen it with Isaac. So Isaac Chamberlain, when he'd done it, his rounds are very specifically tailored so that you peak, and then 2.5, 3 weeks out, he might do his biggest, longest spar. So if he's got a 12-round title fight, that's when he hits his 12 rounds or so. And then it's taper back down, so then he's fresh as a daisy come fight week.
Yeah, which is how it should be, right?
Which is how it should be, because I don't think you should. Right, I've got a 12-round title fight. I'm going to do 12 rounds every spar all the time. No, you start with 6. You do 2 or 3 weeks of 6, and then build up. Slowly. I think that's a better way of doing it and peaking at the right time.
Well, I've also heard pro boxers as well that I know that have done, like, they've got 12 rounders or 10 rounders coming up, but they go through sessions sometimes and they'll just do 3 rounds, so mad pace. Yeah. And then they'll do other days where they do the full 12, and it's all very kind of, I don't know if scientific's the right word, but it's worked out.
Yeah, it's meticulously planned out. I think a lot of the coaches are now very good with that, where they are actually planning it on how can we Because if you think as well, if you're doing a 3 rounds at crazy intensity, it's because you want to get that extra gear when you want to go in a fight. So if you've got 12 rounds, 10 rounds, 3 of those rounds you can hit it really hard.
Yeah.
So you know you've got that gear where you can pick up a pace for 3 minutes and really go for it. So I like it in terms of the boxing side because they are very meticulous and it's all geared around peaking at the right time.
Yeah,
I think that's what's key.
Yeah, and is there a big difference the way you train sort of MMA fighters? I know that sounds like a silly question, but MMA fighters and boxers, is there a big difference?
Not massively. I mean, they're both movements that they're multi-directional all round. They require very similar skill set in terms of footwork, change of direction. It's basic. The way I see it is strength conditioning. People get too specific with it.
Yeah.
And actually, if I'm honest, like, what's good? You just want to train strength, get strong as hell, strength, speed, where you're moving a bit of weight fast, robust, so you're doing your mobility and your accessory work, and then you just want to train speed and power. Like, you can refine the movements a little bit, so you can be like, right, an MMA fighter, there's a bit more kind of grappling and on-floor work, so you might be a bit more hip dominant or whatever, or a boxer is kind of more rotational work. But the reality is the nuts and bolts are all quite similar.
Yeah.
You might change within a session. Let's say you do 12 movements. There might be 3 or 4 movements. They're a bit more catered towards one or the other. But at the end of the day, a deadlift's a deadlift. You're just picking up heavy weight.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd argue every sport needs to lift some heavy weight at some point.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny you say that. Like, I think you're the 4th strength conditioning coach I've had on here, and you all say similar things. It's like basically keep it simple, right?
yeah,
As
you
in
don't reinvent the wheel, mate.
get strong for getting strong's sake, and then being on there is where you do
And
your
like
work.
the only difference we might have is we might have certain movements that we like prioritise over certain things. So I'm quite big on doing some Olympic lift stuff and a lot of plyometric stuff. So maybe I have a bit more plyometric focus than other coaches who might have more medicine ball focus or something like that.
Right. Okay.
But the nuts and bolts don't change. So if you went a session layout, the way I'd lay it out is mobility, speed, power, strength, accessories, trunk work. That's kind of the basic layout.
This is full body.
Yeah, it's because it's full body. So I normally see these guys twice a week. So you kind of need to
That
cover
seems
as
the
much
common
as you
thing,
can. Yeah,
That seems a common thing. Full body, twice a week.
Twice
keep it
a week.
simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. I think stick to a structure that you know works for you. That's always what I've found, or works for your guys. So, and then follow that to a T. Within the movements of the frame, you can get different movements within the framework, but reality is they're not reinventing the wheel in a lot of it. So that's the way I see it. I mean, some places you get more injuries in certain places. So like boxers, their shoulders are in pieces quite often. Right. So you kind of may spend a bit more time looking after their shoulders, like some rotator cuff work or something like that.
Simple as that, yeah.
Yeah, but apart from that, it's all fairly similar. That's why sometimes I'll put in, because sometimes the guys like to have a training partner and stuff, so I'll put in an MMA fighter with a boxer, and they'll still do, especially when they're out of camp and they're just doing their general prep, because they can still do, they're still basically following a very similar framework. There might just be a couple of movements they do differently.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, is it, when you put them together. So I won't mention his name because he might not want it, but as a boxer I know he's a pro, and I've done a little bit of work with him recently for grappling, just upper body, sort of almost like Greco-Roman style to help. And he was a bit didn't fancy it too much to start with, but then once he started doing it, he's like, fucking, this is really beneficial to like boxing, like up close.
I got 2 guys of mine, 2 very high level pros who asked the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. They were like, oh, maybe I want to start doing a bit of grappling just to work the clinch work.
Yeah, exactly. And he said it's really helping him. We've only done, I think we've probably done about 6-7 sessions at this point. And it's very when I say 6-7 sessions, I don't mean an hour.
I mean, you're doing 10 minutes, or finish a session with 10 minutes, or you're warming up with a little bit of it.
Yeah, warm up a little bit I've done, and then I've sort of put him on the wall, even though he's not on the cage, he's in a ring, right? But same sort of principle, just held him.
Doing the things, the over,
he's bigger than I am.
Drill and these sort of things.
And just holding him, making him work and showing him how to get out of it. And he's bigger than me. And he was kind of amazed of how I could hold him still. And like, not that I'm trying to pat myself on the back, but I'll hold you still, bitch. No, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like just little simple crossovers. And like if you've ever, like you see MMA fighters sparring with boxers all the time, and that helps, even though it's completely different. I'm a big believer, in your opinion again, I think boxing's a great base for stand-up. Like obviously you need the kicks and stuff, but if you ever work with like pure Muay Thai guys and stuff, they're a little bit flat-footed. And obviously a boxer against a Muay Thai guy, pure Muay Thai, he's not going to have a fun time. But when you're transferring that to MMA and the wrestling and everything else that comes with it, I personally believe the footwork of boxing will help you further.
I agree. So I do, so I'll do a lot of footwork drills with the guys to make sure foot positioning is really good, especially when they're changing direction and how they put on the brakes or the accelerator and they change direction. And you do that and you notice the boxers move really well when they do that.
Yeah.
And the MMA guys, some of them, especially if they come from a Muay Thai or grappling background, they're learning that. It takes a little bit longer for them to learn that kind of foot positioning and footwork drills. But I just think, I agree, it's so beneficial learning footwork. I think that's one of the key things.
I think so. Well, I'll tell you what I did when I was blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I started wrestling and I found Lubo. Shout out Lubo, I always mention him. One of the most fantastic rappers I've ever been with. But wrestlers are the best athletes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like eye-opening, like shit, like, you know, incredible. But like jiu-jitsu, and I'm not bashing jiu-jitsu, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, I've been in jiu-jitsu 10 years, but like athletically, you don't have to be that gifted. Do you know what I mean? You can be more tricky, you can play your game more.
Okay, yeah.
So pure jiu-jitsu I'm talking about. If you've just started jiu-jitsu, you know, you might be 10 years deep in jiu-jitsu and great at it, but then if you took you out and put you in a track and field situation, you're in big trouble. Whereas someone like a wrestler, I've found, is just
wrestling
phenomenal.
is predominantly fast twitch,
Yep.
kind of fast twitch, explosive movements, isn't it? So, whereas I guess in jiu-jitsu it's a bit more technical, so you can, let's say it's chess played with your body.
It is, yeah.
So
and you can hide from the sort of
you can
places you
manipulate
don't want to be.
certain positions just by moving your body slightly.
Yeah.
Whereas wrestling is just it's explosive, fast twitch. You've got to move quick, all hip dominant, and if you're like, that's why they're all fucking huge around here. Like strong hips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there might be some special supplements in the Eastern Bloc as well. I'm not spreading rumours.
Mate, I'm sure there's some extracurriculars kicking around. I'm sure there is. But
exactly.
hey, there's no testing. There's no testing.
Is there any of that in rugby? Not to get you in trouble or anything, but when you was in rugby, was there quite a
I
steroid culture?
noticed, mate. But then again, I was quite naive to it, so I wouldn't have noticed really. I just assumed everyone's a professional athlete; they wouldn't do it, sort of thing. So
they wouldn't do such a thing.
So maybe if I was back in that setting now, maybe I'd be a bit more wise to it, or no. But at the time, I had no.
That's interesting because I've always been quite naive to it. Like I was in when I was in my mid-20s, people like asked me about steroids. I was like, what? People don't take steroids, you know, not real people. But it's
just
right,
assume,
isn't it?
Yeah, you almost get the idea. Oh, it's a drug. You wouldn't do that. Like, why would you do that? You get banned. Like, for 4 years out. I think the first time I remember seeing someone get banned, I think it was when Rio Ferdinand got banned.
Yeah, okay.
I think you remember
way
that.
back in the day.
Yeah, way back in the day. That's the first time I'd ever seen it. I was like, why would he do that? He's got himself banned. He's out for 2 years now. And so I think ever since then, when I was playing it, probably ingrained in me, no one would ever do that because they see what the bans you can get.
But I think it's easy to get round, isn't it, from what I've spoke to people.
I think it's almost like a fine line nowadays between sports science and that now.
Who got the best chemist type thing.
It's like if you watch that, do you remember watching that documentary Icarus?
Yeah. There's fucking
the
mental,
Russian geezer. But you look at that and you're like, fucking hell, it's like a real sports science actual
That's
thing.
their full-time thing, isn't it? You know?
It's proper science, but it's obviously illegal. So you just can't be doing it. So it's it's an interesting topic. I do find that.
I think
sort
some
of stuff
sports
quite
are rife too. I had a former semi-professional cyclist on here, as in like Lance Armstrong style, and he said like when he was 17, the team pulled him aside and like, what do you want to do? Are we in or do you want to just stop?
This is part of the problem because if you're in a sport that's rife with it, you'd look at me and you'd be like, well, he's on it. So if I don't go on it, there's no chance I'm going to win. So I may as well go on it. And then the next person will look at you and be like, well, these two are on it.
Yeah,
right,
especially
so
in a
I've
sport
got to
like
get on
that.
it. Yeah.
Because it's not such a skill-based sport. I'm sure there is a lot of skill if anyone watches this, the society.
Yeah, there probably is. But
it's not the same. Like fighting, you can get away.
Predominantly, it's physical. It's
output,
how much pain you can tolerate, basically.
Whereas fighting, there's ways to be tricky, right? So if me and you, and I'm juiced to the tits, but you're more tricky than me, you can make it work.
Yeah,
still.
I think if there's more, there's a higher skill. Same with like in football. It's like, to be honest, I think probably a lot of the guys would probably do it for recovery if they're going to do it.
I think massive.
I think that's part of it. If you're doing it within training and you're just ready to go again, you're doing 3 sessions the next day, then maybe that's where you'd actually look at that. I think that's where you get more benefit out of it than just juicing for fight night or juicing for a game of football or rugby.
Well, that's why they implement the randoms, isn't it? Because a lot of people are actually clean on fight night, but it's out of the system.
You get way more out of your training camp if you're juiced up, basically.
And especially if you're someone who's, say, like in their mid to late 30s, right, where you've got so much experience and you're so switched on in terms of what you're doing, and now you've got the hormones of an 18-year-old again. You're fucking flying.
Yeah, then you're flying. Oh, mate, 100%. And the recovery aspect of it as well. If you're in your 30s, like your body's in pieces.
Well, speak for yourself there, son.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking generally, right? I'm not
ready for that yet.
Basically talking about myself, but Yeah, God, my body, yeah. So that's probably, I mean, if you're a banged up rugby player and you just want to keep going.
Yep, absolutely.
It maybe makes sense. But yeah, to answer your question, I had no clue.
No
clue if any.
Sorry,
any
guys,
of
we tried. I prodded.
Long-winded way of saying that, but we got there.
Yeah, but I think, because I've been around some guys. I won't mention his name, but he might have played for England. He used to train in a certain gym I was in.
Yeah.
Now, if he ain't been on steroids, I'm not from. You know what I mean? I'm not from Earth.
It's all genetics.
Like, yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Like
some
that
motherfucker.
motherfucker.
Genetic freaks.
Yeah, I mean, he was just like, when you're up close, he's big, but big's nothing, right? Big's just whatever. But then, when you're close to someone and you see like something's different, and you're like, he's fucking like everything was
or something. Yeah,
the veins, the fucking. I know it doesn't mean anything, but he was this guy I'm talking about. I was probably 24 at the time, and he would have probably been about mid-30s. Yeah. He had acne all over his back, and he was like...
he just feels hard.
Everything looking at him was just like, there's something strange. And I was coming to an age, where like you're fully grown. You're not like a teenager and you can't go, well, he's a grown man. You're going, well, I'm a grown man too now. And you're looking at him and you're going...
I feel like a kid again.
Yeah, exactly. It was like something strange with that one.
Yeah, a bit out of my depth here. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know. It's just...
So I took him down and choked him. No, I didn't really.
That's it, mate. It's tricky.
I didn't really. But some athletes are born different too, which is a whole other subject. But take us back to how you got into strength conditioning, mate. Was it like because you stopped rugby?
Yeah, kind of, mate. Although, like, I'd always developed a bit of a factor. To be honest, injuries helped that because I kind of spent so much time in the gym, rehabbing, these sort of things. I developed a bit of a kind of keen interest in it straight away. So I spent a lot of time with my S&C coaches back then. So you kind of start picking their brains and chatting to them a bit, taking ideas, and you're like, you know what, their job's pretty cool. I like what they get to do. Like they get to deal with athletes on a daily basis. So yeah, that's kind of where I got my love for it. And then while I moved to London at 24. And as I say, I was trying to dot around the kind of semi-pro league. So I went and got a degree in strength and conditioning at St Mary's Uni. Yep. Because I was like, well, they do a course there in it, 3-year degree. So I was like, you know what, I fancy a crack at this, and let's give it a go and see. And that degree is wicked. There's some very, very, very good strength and conditioning coaches who kind of run it, and sports scientists who run it, and they're very good at getting you internships and getting you in the kind of mix and getting you like. Basically, just getting you, like I said, a little bit of Fulham, a little bit of Ealing Rugby Club, some other bits in badminton, lots of different sports, and you kind of get immersed in the strength and conditioning side of things. So yeah, that was kind of, once I'd done my degree, I was a bit like, you know what, I want to have a real crack at this and see what happened.
And how old are you at this point?
I would have been 26.
Yeah, so you're an adult. You've got to make money.
Yeah, 25, 26. But it was kind of then, once you've kind of qualified and you're all good to go, it's a bit like, what avenue do you go down?
Okay.
This was what I was umming and ahhing with. It's like, I've played rugby, I know rugby, but then do I want to be involved in that? Or do I find that a little bit kind of just doing the same thing? Then football I was debating, but then also I had that experience at Fulham where I was like, no one gives a shit about it. So I was like, well, that's that's probably not. So actually, I just started PTing and waiting a little bit to decide. And then, funny enough, about 6 years ago, it probably was, Isaac Chamberlain just contacted me randomly out of the blue.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Well, I had a good mate. His physio is a guy called Addy, who's a very good mate of mine anyway. And so he said, Isaac's looking for an S&C coach. Do you fancy the gig? Yeah. And I'd trained with Addy a lot. And Addy was an high level sprinter, so a freak athlete.
Okay. And
Addy put in a good word for me. So this guy's pretty good. He knows his stuff. Do you fancy having a crack with him? So Isaac, happy, and it's lucky Isaac's a very high level boxer. So I was like, well, this helps. This is a big opportunity. So I was like, yeah, fuck it, we'll have a crack.
Nice, that's cool. And sorry for anyone who doesn't know, Isaac Chamberlain, cruiserweight, he's fought like all kinds of titles, and he's been up there. He's fought some guys that have been world champions.
Exactly, and hopefully he should be a world champion himself in the next couple of years. Is kind of the goal for him. So
and how big is he? Because he looks on the smaller side of a cruiser.
He is. He kind of walks around about 102.
Okay, kilos.
Yeah, 102 kilos. But funny, these cruiserweights, they get up to they're walking around at 105, 110. Some of them.
Mate, some cruiserweights are big boys,
It's just mad how they drop down to 91 kilos. Because I see Isaac do his weight cut, and he's a smaller cruiserweight. And he finds that hard.
Yeah.
So these guys, God knows how Chris Smith or someone
Yeah.
drops down.
Well, Chris Smith used to train just around the corner from here too.
Did he?
Yeah, literally.
Was that with Shane McGuigan? Yeah.
I was in McGuigan's gym a little bit. I don't know him personally, but being around, like, he's big, mate. Fuck me. Like, you look at him.
Yeah, he's a big boy. I remember before we fought Isaac, so we were there. We're both walking out, and we look at Chris Smith, and even I saw Isaac there, and he was like, "Fucking hell."
Yeah, and Richard Reactfor as well. He's even bigger than him. And I don't really know him personally, but I've sparred with him about 4 or 5 times. Like, I'm talking 2012. You know what I mean? And he was fighting a lot lighter, but he was like, his wingspan, his height, he's like 6'5", like massive.
Because Isaac's what, 6'2", 6'3", maybe 6'3".
Is he that big? Yeah, I've never met him.
Yeah, he's about 6'3", but in terms of cruiserweight size, like that's like 2 inches smaller than all the others. So it's kind of actually these guys are effectively heavyweights.
Well, that's it, mate. If you ever see a proper heavyweight, like for anyone who's been around real fighters, that's a genuine heavyweight. This is a fucking big person. Like,
they are so
proper
big, mate. They are so big. Yeah. Like, you don't realise until you see them in person how big they are.
I'll tell you another one I've been around a bit. I've seen up close is George Groves.
Yeah.
Have you been around him?
I've met him a couple of times,
yeah. He fought at 12 stone. Now, how the fuck that guy ever got away? He's huge.
Yeah, same with the other guy. I did a bit of work with James DeGale just recently, just PTing him. But he's the same. He was at a gym I was at, and he's massive.
Yeah. He came down Earlsfield, actually. I was at Earlsfield Boxing Club, and he came down for a few rounds, like at the start of camp when he was getting ready for George Groves years ago. And I saw him up close. And again, that was one of the things you see and you go, what? Because, again, like this is around the time I was fighting at 75, and he'd been pro probably 2-3 years at this point, and he was 75 as an amateur, and I looked at him and I was like, what? He's like huge to me.
You see him now, he's a big boy. He's in good shape, but he's just big. He must be mid 80 kilos or something like that. So you're like, how the hell did he get down?
Mate, George Groves I saw recently in Sainsbury's. Shout out to Sainsbury's, massive. I won't say which Sainsbury's, but he was in there and he was like, he's bigger than mid 80s. that boy's probably over 100. Like, I mean, but like.
He don't give a fuck. No.
But also, I know. I mean, he's not in the best of shape, but he's not out of shape, and he's big, like proper big. Like if you looked at him, you'd think he probably fought a cruiserweight. You know what I mean? He's a proper lump.
A lot of these guys are like that, mate. It's wild. It's wild. So that was kind of Isaac was my first client in kind of combat sport, which is quite it's pretty mad, and that's about six years ago. Yeah.
Was he already pro at this point?
Yeah, he just had his fight with Lawrence Okoli.
Right, okay. So he was up there already.
He was up there, but then wanted to have a few little changes and change things around. So it was kind of around that time. It might have been a tad later than that. Maybe Luke Watkins, the fight after that, something like that. It was in his early days anyway. So then, the power of social media and all of that, people see you working with Isaac Chamberlain, and then it kind of just snowballs. A lot of people are like, oh, wow, right, he's doing that. Oh, I want to train with you now.
Yeah.
And my first MMA client was about a year after that, and it was a guy called Dom Wooding.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but I know the name.
Yeah, so Dominic Wooding, he's a very, very talented MMA fighter, pro MMA fighter. So I was kind of lucky. Isaac was my first boxer, and Dom was my first MMA fighter, and he was in Bellator, and he was doing really well. So I was like, well, these two clients, like, they're kind of accelerated me a little bit, like in terms of like exposure and all of this sort of stuff. People are actually seeing it. So then you that's how the GB Top Team kind of link basically came because of Dom. Because Dom was the first, and then a lot of people see Dom doing stuff with me and they're like, oh, I want a piece of that, I want to do that. So you end up looking after about 15 of them.
Do you? Yeah, wow.
So it's quite a cool kind of beginning. It was like I had no plans to be in combat sports 6-7 years ago, but it's just the way it just randomly happened. And now I almost can't see myself in any other sport, because I fucking love it. It's great fun. I like coaching guys on an individual basis, like, because you get to know them a bit more, I think, rather than being in a team sport. You're kind of just teaching a group. Here, you know each guy. You're there for them throughout the camp, throughout the year, fight night, fight week, all of that. You're kind of you're a bit more know them on a personal level and a bit more involved. Yeah, which I really like.
It's a different type of person as well, I think, isn't it?
I think so.
From a mentality point of view, not just fighting. I mean, obviously, fighting's a different thing entirely, like the fear and whatever that goes into it. But just being an individual in a sport is a different mindset.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think you could speak to a tennis player, speak to a golfer, or speak to any of that, and they've got to be a bit kind of. You've got to have an interesting mentality and a real kind of, because at the end of the day, it's only you. Like you're not really you're letting your coaches down a little bit, but you're not really letting anyone down. No. If you don't want to do it, you can just be like, nah, I don't want to do it. And there's no one relying on you to kind of do it. So you've got to have a bit more of a, something within a bit more to kind of actually, so these guys at the top, it's mental. Like how you'll look at like their history from when they started and what they've been through to get to where they have. And a lot of people could be as talented as them, but they've canned it because it takes a hell of a lot to get there.
Yeah, I bet. And I've mentioned this on it before as well. Like to get into a fight sport and really take it serious, there's something not quite right anyway, right? It's not all good. You didn't. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? There's something that's got you there. There's a reason you're doing it, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I was having this discussion with Chanel yesterday. Actually, I think especially the guys who were a bit older in the sport, they will have had almost like deeper reasons than just being, oh, I want to be a boxer or be an MMA fighter. I think nowadays people coming through, you could be 10 years old and you'd be like, I want to fight in the UFC. Because I think it's a sport now the younger people are seeing. Yeah. So that's what Chanel was saying to me. She was saying like, oh, there's some younger people she knows in Liverpool and stuff who are absolute weapons at like 12 years old. But they've been doing MMA from a young age, whereas kind of back in the day when you were growing up, you do a discipline, one form of discipline, doesn't really matter which one, but you do a discipline and then you'd be like, right, I need to somehow try and make this a sport that I can earn a living from. Yeah. Then you go into MMA. Yeah. So that's why you get guys who are just a discipline dominant, if you get me. So they're either a grappler or they're a striker or whatever. Whereas now I think the guys coming through are much more well-rounded. Yeah. And I think they are now just doing it because they want to be a fighter, not so much for a deeper reason.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. And I think when you started doing it young, aside from the skill aspect of it, it's fun, right? Like when you started playing rugby and football, you weren't doing it for a career.
Mate, I see the kids here are 5 years old doing jiu-jitsu and they're loving it.
And they don't even realise they're doing it as well. I've noticed when I've been at kids' classes and stuff, they don't notice it. They're just playing. Yeah. And they happen to have a gi on, and they happen to be learning something.
It's just a bit of fun. They're doing it with their mates,
and a good coach is good at that point because you can definitely overcoach kids. Like I don't know if you know Elevate, the gym Elevate in Richmond. Shout out Nathan. He's been on the podcast. Nathan Jones, great guy. He teaches. I take my mate's boy up there, and he does it with him. And you know, it's a 4 to 7 year old class, I think it is. Yeah. Like, and that's hard. That's hard.
It's hard, mate.
But he does it great. And the reason I bring it up because I've been around people that don't do it so great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if you become too disciplined,
trying to teach them too much,
disciplinarian, that's the word. If you become too much of that, the kids just don't gravitate.
But also, you're trying to teach them too much jiu-jitsu. You lose them. They're like, what? No, he has them. You know,
just let them have a roll around.
He teaches them jiu-jitsu, but they're not realising it. He teaches them a position.
Let them do their forward rolls.
Exactly.
All of these sorts
now
of
do
stuff,
this. Grab his arm this way. Move that way. Great. Now do something else. And they're getting it, but not realising.
Yeah, I think there's a special skill in being able to teach kids versus adults. I think there's completely different styles of coaching.
Yeah, and especially like an adults come off work, like because again, jiu-jitsu is a hobbyist sport too. Like not a lot of people go down a real boxing club. They go and do boxing fitness, but you can't as a guy in his 40s. You're not
going sparring.
You can't go in, but they wouldn't let you in. If you went in a real boxing club at 40, they're going to go, what? Sorry, forget it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas jiu-jitsu is come in, let's learn. So you've got different ways of learning too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I've noticed that. That's why I've quite gravitated to it. It reminds me a bit of the kind of rugby community kind of base where it's kind of everyone's kind of just in and they're having a bit of fun together. They all know each other. They go for a beer with each other. It's quite a nice atmosphere. I do like that about the jiu-jitsu atmosphere.
Yeah, and as we said, what did you say? 8 weeks into jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah, I'm early doors, mate.
That's good, mate. That's an exciting time. But what got you into it? Was it just being around it and you thought, fuck it, I want to try?
I'd always been open to it, intrigued by it, but kind of never been like, it makes sense, I'm here. Like say, I'll finish a session at 11 or 12 o'clock and then I'll just jump in the 12 o'clock class because I'm like, well, I'm here, I've got an hour free, I may as well just jump in. So it's kind of, I don't know whether, a lot of the guys have always said, you should get into it, like you'd be good at it, all of this. But it's like you've got to make the effort to get to a gym to then do it. Whereas if I'm already here, I'm like, well,
got no excuse.
I've got no excuse.
If you, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but if you literally step about 2 steps that way, you're on a mat.
This is my area.
Exactly.
This is the BJJ area. So, like I said, it's one that I'm quite keen to just have a bit of a crack at, a bit of fun. But I'm doing it more for the fun side of it. It's to do something different.
That's how everyone starts, man.
Funny, it's quite ironic. I work in a gym. coach people in the gym, and I want to do something that gets me away from the gym.
Yeah.
So it's like,
But do you know what, mate? I
don't want to lift a weight, mate.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah.
We'll be here in like a year from now and do another episode, and you'll be going, I'm fucking jiu-jitsu 7 days a week. I'm competing. I ain't got time for nothing. You know what I mean? That's how it builds.
I do. So at the moment I'm only doing it twice a week, but it's partly because my schedule's kind of.
But that's perfect, to be honest with you. I would always say someone starting, because how many times you see people, I'm going to train every day, and they're fucked. Forget it. Train twice a week, and then when you're ready, start training 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I am a bit kind of train smart with it. I've listened to my body before I've even started it.
Yep.
It's like, I know it is hard on your body. So,
yeah.
Twice a week for me is enough to kind of pick up a few things, but have a bit of fun with it and not take it too seriously.
Have you got a favourite submission yet?
Not yet, mate. I'm just surviving.
We'll see if we give you one. We'll see if we can get you one.
I'm strictly on survival, mate, at the moment.
I got you. And you're a gi player, you said?
Yeah.
We're definitely, by the time I next see him, guys, we'll definitely have that change. We're definitely getting some give him some cauliflower ears and all that business.
No, I will. A few more weeks of the gi, just like the novelty's still there for me.
Yeah, good man.
I want to whack the gear on and
nice.
Have a bit of crap with it.
And are you a fan of martial arts? Do you watch UFC and all that business?
Yeah, mate, love it.
Nice. Because did you see the one on the weekend?
I saw the one, I know. Who was I chatting to the other day? Dom's got the same, had the same manager of the guy who won.
Which one? The main event?
Yeah, the main event.
Who
beat Holloway.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, obviously these come out a little bit of time delay if we haven't got sort of a fight date coming up for the guy to put out, so this will be a bit delayed. But off the back of this, we're a few days after UFC 308. So Ilia Topuria was the main event against Max Holloway, and the co-main was Robert Whittaker versus Hamzat. So this is what we're talking about in case we're like delayed a bit.
Yeah, no, I know. He put on a hell of a show.
Mate.
Hell of a show. Because after Max Holloway came from his one with Gaethje recently, everyone's, he's obviously the golden child at the moment.
Yep.
He's put on that. I was like, fuck it, fair play.
Yeah, I wonder if the weight does him, because that's down a weight from the Gaethje fight.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't think.
But he looked great. He did look great.
He did look great, and I think he's tough as nails, and I think he'd get on with it, whatever.
Yep.
I can't imagine it's been the best thing for him.
No.
Having to cut that amount of weight.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, he's a seasoned pro though. What's he had, like 25 UFC fights or something like that?
Mad, yeah. I think he's been in the UFC since he's 20, and he's now 32.
Yeah, exactly. So so he knows the deal. So, but what I like about him is. It's kind of no excuses, no bullshit. He'll just put on there.
Nor should there ever be, right? Yeah. To me, there's nothing worse than when you see a fighter make an excuse.
Yeah.
To me, it's like you go in there, you give your best, and
that's I love the Bivol Beterbiev fight.
Mad,
because,
great example.
Great example of that because Bivol loses the fight. Some argue he should have won. It was very, very close, touch and go either way. Mm-hmm. And then Eddie Hearn's blurted his mouth off saying it's a robbery and all of that. And Bivol's like, no, it wasn't. I just lost.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have been better.
That's it.
And then you go the other way around, and Beterbiev's like just humble as anything. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well done to Bivol. That was a great fight.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
And I wonder simple. I gravitate to those characters.
I like that. I wonder if a cultural thing. Obviously, they're both Russian, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They was on a team together, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's that kind of culture. Like when I've been in like Eastern Europe training and stuff. I heard, I wasn't in Russia, but I'd heard some the reason Russians, you don't see them smiling. And it's any Russian out there's probably going, that's not why, shut the fuck up. But from what I heard, and it makes sense, is if a Russian man's in the street, he won't be laughing and giggling because you looked at as silly. Like you're a man. Why are you laughing for? Behave yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it all ties in, doesn't it? That kind of
which is probably you look at it, it's probably a little bit of a toxic kind of trait, being like that.
Pros and cons, isn't there? Do you know what I mean?
But I do like it. The humble. You lose a fight. There's no bullshit. It's just I should have been better. I'll go fight. I'll be better next time.
But that's how it should be. There's nothing worse than seeing a fighter go, oh, I had this excuse, that excuse.
I know. I just loved it because Eddie Hearn throwing his toys out the pram, and Bivol's like. Nah, just
settle down.
Settle
down, kid.
There's not many people that big dog who could just do that.
Yeah, but there's loads of. I don't know if you remember the Sean O'Malley versus Peter Young fight. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, maybe.
Close fight. I thought Peter Young won. They gave the decision to O'Malley, and on the mic after
that was quite recent, wasn't it?
About a year ago, something like that. Maybe a bit more now because time goes, doesn't it? But But anyway, they gave him the mic and they said, "Did you think you won?" And he went, "I don't know." And he was like a pause. He was like, I don't know. And I thought that's,
it's
I
quite
like
honest.
that. You know what I mean? I like that.
No, I gravitate to those characters straight away. Instantly, you'll get a fan in me if that's the way you act. And there's no bullshit. I know you got to sell fights nowadays, but
you don't sell yourself. Do you know what I mean? I don't like that.
I think
when I say sell yourself, I don't mean sell yourself in a promotional sense. I mean sell yourself out.
I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself as well when you're like that. If you look at the Ben Whittaker thing at the moment, he was doing great because he was selling fights and whatever, and he was kind of backing it up, but then as soon as one doesn't go well, suddenly he's now known as Ben Whittaker. So it's like you suddenly, people love to bring you down.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
So if you open yourself up for that, then...
But the thing that gets me, I spoke to someone recently, like Joshua versus Dubois was recently, and Joshua got smashed to pieces, obviously. Yeah. But like I've spoke to people that don't box, never done anything, and they go, shit, Joshua, and he, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, bro, do you know the fucking level he had to go to?
Two-time bloody world champion.
Do you know what I mean? Olympic gold medal. All them top fighters he's beat. He's lost the fight and now he's shit.
He's fucking good. He might not be the best in the world, but that's because the best in the world is fucking unreal.
And I don't think people realise how close things are. Do you know what I mean? Like he got chinned early, right?
Especially in heavyweight boxing. So he nearly won that fight.
Yeah, he got hurt really early.
He would have got knocked down 3 times, and he hurt Dubois really badly in that 5th round, I think it was, and very nearly put him down. Yeah. And if he'd have won that fight, everyone would be like, it's the greatest comeback ever. Like,
that's it.
Yeah, pulled it out of the bag. So it's fine margins.
Of course
at that level of sport, it's fine margins.
And also, we're talking about size. I don't know if you've ever seen Joshua in person. I've seen him up close on a number of times at boxing shows. Like, we're talking about size. Like, he's a legit 6'6".
That squat rack as a person.
Well, do you know what I mean? He's a legit 6'6", 110 plus kilos with no fat on him. Yeah. Like, you get hit on the fucking chin by him and tell me how shit he is. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know. But it's the classic casual fan. It's kind of... Yeah, it doesn't matter what the sport is. People will say you're shit, even though you're the best, one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Are you more of a boxing fan or an MMA guy?
I think I know a bit more about about boxing.
Okay.
I know a bit more about boxing. But I love both, mate. I think they're both. Mate. I like the way, although the Saudis coming into boxing, I think is actually potentially helping a bit because the better fights are happening now. But that's what I always loved about MMA is you'd always get. Like they did it very well in terms of matching good fighters with it.
Because the UFC's got the freedom to have one champion, and it's all well and good. I'm not knocking anyone that fights in any organization, but if you're a Bellator champion, you're not a true world champion in the sense of the UFC guys are world champion. Yeah,
because I think obviously everyone's got the UFC is the pedestal.
Yeah,
like it's always represented with the casual fan who doesn't even know MMA that much. Doesn't think they're an MMA fighter, they think they're a UFC fighter.
Do you train UFC?
Do you train UFC? Like, that's the classic. So they've done such a good job at branding it that it is the gold standard.
Yep.
Whereas you go to boxing, you've got 4 different belts, and it's kind of a bit like, it's a hard way. The reason why there wasn't big fights always happening, so it took years to kind of get big fights going, whereas now the Saudis have rocked up and they just throw a load of cash at it.
Yeah.
And
fix it. No problem.
Yeah, I think as a boxing fan, I mean, obviously the Saudi thing's controversial in whatever, but in terms of just sporting spectacle, they are just throwing the best against the best, paying whatever they want. And that's why, as a boxing fan, you're actually going to get some of the best fights you're going to see.
Well, the rumours
are the next 2 or 3 years is going to be
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Well, the rumours are all flying about that they're going to buy the organisations and get rid of the belts and have one champion.
I've heard of that.
And how good would that be?
It would be. I think it would be epic. You'd have to ask some of the boxers I've got or whatever their opinions on it, because I guess there's other ways to look at it. But I do think if anyone gets offered to fight in Saudi for big money, obviously they're going to take it.
Yeah, so. I just think it's like if you're a world champion. You're the best at that division, and that should be end of story, close the book. Not he's a world champion, he is. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's very hard to kind of get. There's a reason why there's very few undisputed champions, because a guy who's got WBO and that alone won't want to fight someone who's got 3 belts, because they'll be like, "Nah, I'm world champion. I like being undefeated as a world champion." Yeah. Whereas, so to get an undisputed fight is quite hard to do. So it's interesting. Like I said. The fact that I think that Usyk Fury fight kind of opened the kind of floodgates a little bit. Once that happened, now you have Bivol Beterbiev, Fury Usyk again. I think next year there's going to be some huge ones. Yep. Like, I think as a boxing fan, it's exciting.
I think it's great, man. I'm all for it with the Saudis buying stuff up, because I think even if they don't buy the other organisations and they just come out with, right, this is the undisputed belt, who's the taker? I think that could kind of be looked at as the real world title, and people go, boom.
Yeah,
let's do that.
I think so. You win the other ones and then you get a chance to get to the top. I think there will be an element of that. And if you're throwing all this cash at them, like, money talks at the end of the day. So people are going to fight if you offer the right price.
Well, it happens in jiu-jitsu too, doesn't it? I'm sure you know about the CGI stuff, or CJI. I was CGI. CJI, where they're paying mad money, and like not all of them, but a lot of the top ADCC guys just went, well, fuck that, I'm going over here. Of course, and it's great, right? Like, I'm all for that, but especially in jiu-jitsu, because it's like jiu-jitsu, there's very few full pros.
You don't earn much money at all to suddenly being offered good money, and you're like, fucking hell.
And it's the difference between being a full-time jiu-jitsu guy or being a real jiu-jitsu athlete, but also I've got to train people on the side, like as a private.
Train people side,
like, if you
or
can
got
get
a
rid
job
of that,
or whatever.
it's a
like,
game changer.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? You're a real athlete then.
Yeah, because then the quality of athlete just goes through the roof. Then.
Yeah, of course it does, because that's all you do.
So you dedicate yourself to it. Yeah,
and they wake up and they do their morning, then they come and see someone like you and do their fucking work, and then they sleep. And do you know what I mean? Like they're living their life.
It's then built around performance rather than everything, and then this is just another thing they do that they happen to be amazing at.
Yeah.
Like you can actually really push, and then you see higher quality bouts, higher quality performance. It's good. I think that's great.
Yeah,
I think money in sport, I think, is great because it just gives them everyone a chance to kind of get to their level, like a really good level. I think if that's a limiting factor, sometimes it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I do. But the problem with jiu-jitsu's got is, like, do you watch jiu-jitsu?
A bit, yes.
You do. See, I don't.
Always have it up on the TV.
Do you? See, I'm not watching the CGI.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'll catch the results later. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
like boxing, I won't miss. UFC, I won't miss. Like that, it's like, do you want to watch this match? Not really.
I hear you.
Tell me one.
We'll have it on that TV, but I wouldn't go home and put it on. Let's put
exactly.
It that way. Like,
I
wouldn't go on YouTube and watch something. Like,
Mrs. is like, what are you doing? Shut the fuck up. We're not watching that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
She's like, put Emma down on, fuck it, yeah. But who's your favourite fighters to watch? Who's the best pound for pound? All that jazz. Let's get into some of that stuff, mate.
Favourite fighter to what? I love, because I said I'm very footwork driven. I love the footwork and the power and the explosiveness. I love Inui. I think he's sick to watch.
Yeah, and a lot of people won't know who he is, but he's one of the absolute pound for pound monsters.
It's wild how like unknown he is, considering how good he is. You just watch someone like his ability. This is me almost nerding out as an S&C coach, but you're like his footwork and his ability to just create power like that. It's just at that sort of weight. I find that epic. I think
it's amazing.
That's the kind of stuff I gravitate to. You see the heavyweights. I don't like Usyk. I love because he's again, for someone so big, his movement is just unbelievable. But I think I'll gravitate to those guys who they're not kind of blessed with they're not just big lumps. They're kind of quick, fast, explosive movement where they could almost do. That happens to be in boxing, but they could do any sport and they'd be freak athletes at it. Yeah, they're the kind of guys I gravitate to.
Because I've got a theory on this too. You know where like people say the bigger weights knock more people out, and it's because they got more power, and the lower ones aren't big enough to knock each other out. I think it's complete nonsense, and it'd be interesting to hear what you think as a strength and conditioning coach.
Interesting.
I tell you what I think it is that the lower weights are faster, so they're harder to catch clean. They're big enough to knock each other out because they're the same fucking size. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. Whereas the heavyweights aren't as quick to get out the way, which is why you get more. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that they're as powerful as the heavyweights, but pound for pound, they're probably more powerful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think probably Inui's probably the most powerful boxer out there.
Tank Davis is another one,
Tank
right?
Davis, another knockout artist, but he's about this high,
tiny,
and he's tiny, but because that just comes down, because stuff like that, punching power, just comes down to your ability to produce force rapidly. Quite often, like that's you're going to punch harder if you're effectively moving weight fast. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. So it's not necessarily how big you are.
No. Well, Wilder's a great example. Even though he's a heavyweight, very light heavyweight.
He was a basketball player, so he could jump through the roof. And that's effectively just his ability. Because if you think throwing a punch, it starts with your foot, and then the power just comes through your body. It doesn't just do that. That's not going to give you any power. Anyone who's an arm puncher, it's like throwing with pillows. Like it's not happening. So someone like Deontay Wilder, if you've ever watched him jump when he was playing basketball, his jumping, like his ability to dunk and everything, that's just transferred. So that's all power through his foot, his hip, his trunk. And it's just coming out with that. The arm's just an extension of what's happening here. And that's why, because everyone looks at him, they're like, his legs are tiny. They're all tiny. If you look at the length of his Achilles tendon, it's like that. Same as if you look at Usain Bolt. His Achilles tendon's like that and his calf's like that. Because it's all tendon, and tendon's just your fast twitch.
That's interesting to hear.
Which is so that's his ability to kind of just switch it on rapidly. Is what's going to help with that kind of knockout power. So you don't necessarily. It's why I do so much plyometric stuff. Because I don't believe. Because also the other thing is you don't want to put on too much weight anyway. Because weight cut gets harder. So then it's how do you create more speed and power without getting like putting on too much muscle.
Yeah, even for a heavyweight though, right? Because your genetics dictate sort of to a limit of what is most beneficial to you.
You can always. I'm just a big believer in train that kind of fast twitch element of it, and like I said, it's the reason why I do so much plyometric work is because I believe that to get more explosive, as well as your footwork and moving around the cage, around the ring or whatever, you need to do a lot of speed work, speed and explosive work. Yeah,
it's the old saying, and it's speed kills. But for anyone who's been in there, it's fucking mate.
Really
when
does.
you're in there with someone who's fast, it's fucking unbelievable.
It really does. It's another reason why I've started introducing to a lot of the guys the Olympic lifting as well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because effectively, that is. I know some people are, it's dangerous or it takes ages to teach, but I'm not a big believer in that. I'm like, you can either teach it or you can't teach it. If you can teach it, then do it, because it's a very useful tool. Because I think, again, you're moving a fairly heavy weight fucking rapidly.
Yeah. Like, and what sort of rep ranges would you do with an Olympic lifting?
It depends what movement. So if we're going something like a clean, then I'd probably go no more than 5 reps.
Right, so low.
Yeah, low. Depends on the if you're building technique, then you'd up the reps slightly. But if you're just going maximum output, then you're going up to 1 to 3. Depends on the move. If you're going a derivative of it, like a hang high pull or something, then maybe you'd up the volume slightly to like 8 reps or something like that. It depends on the movement and the load. But I'm quite a bit like I've started incorporating it a lot more, because I think in the bang for your buck compared to just doing a kettlebell swing or something. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, kettlebell swing is something, it's very simple to do and you can work the hips. I just think nothing transfers energy as well as an Olympic lift. Like that is different. That is pure fast twitch. Yeah. And so a lot of the wrestlers would do that.
Yeah. Big man. When you go to these Eastern countries, like their training is very old school, but very sort of like they train like Olympic lifting, gymnastics, sprinting. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They train like Olympic work.
Sprinting's the other one. Like it's the sprinting is just. Like I feel like every athlete should incorporate.
There's nothing like it, is there? There's nothing like a real sprint.
This isn't like, oh, I'm going to do 600, then 400, then whatever. This is, right, I'm going to go out there, 60 to 100 metres, and I'm going to do 8 sets of that.
That's it.
And that's it, with a 4-minute rest in between, but it's absolute balls out, max effort. There's nothing quite like it in terms of, because that's effectively very high level plyometric stuff. Yeah. And you're training your nervous system at its absolute peak. Yeah. Like nothing tops that. I think if you train strength, some power work in here, and sprint, you'll be a weapon.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't, like you'll know this obviously, but like if you ever do a session with a coach, like you said, I've done sessions where I've done like slightly longer ones, like to warm up more, and then like 4 60s hard, and you're fucked after. Yeah, you're there's no like that. Don't sound like much. You're done.
This balls out. Yeah, I did one the other day. I did it with a. In Amsterdam with a very good sprint coach, a guy called Courtney Fearing. And we just did a bit of warming up, plyometrics, technical drills, and it was 8 120s with a 5-minute rest between.
Fucking brutal.
I was fucking dead.
120 is far for that.
DOMs for fucking 6 days after. Yeah. Because I'm just not used to that. And I just think there's no output like that.
Well, sprinting's a funny one. I've told this on here before. I'm going to tell it again because I'm kind of bashing myself, but I'm kind of getting to say I'm fast as well, so we'll see how it goes. But I've always fancied myself as fast over a short distance, right? Yeah. And I am, right? Yeah. But then, like, there was a guy, and he wasn't a top sprinter. He was in a gym I worked in Canary Wharf, and I think he'd run for the county. He was like county champion at age group, all that kind of shit, right? About the same size as me. And he went, I'm far. I went, fuck off. But we went outside and it was like maybe twice the length of this room, little bit of street. Mate, when I say he fucking cooked me, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. How the fuck was he there? And he's like no level, do you know what I mean? Like, imagine exactly. how fast these fucking
he's like running 100 metres about 11
But it's
seconds.
like the level of athleticism. When they take off, it's like, oh wow. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck me.
Yeah, mate, it's wild. It's wild. So it's, it's really like, interesting one. So obviously you can't be at a track all the time. So then it's how in the gym do you get similar adaptations to that, which is what I'm trying to get out of the guys quite often. And quite often it's combining Olympic lifting with plyometrics. Seems to be something that works quite well for the guys.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And how many sort of sets? Like, because obviously Olympic lifting can cook you, can't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends on your rep scheme. So some of the guys will be 5x2 or something like that, with like a 2-minute rest.
Nice.
Or you'd look at, if it's the higher volume, you'd look at maybe 2 to 3 working sets with a couple of warm-up sets.
And then you sort of move on to the rest of the session.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, it's always the way I lay the session out is kind of I'll do the lighter level plyometric stuff. So your pogo jump, your single leg stuff, your step up jumps, whatever it is.
And what's the sort of rep ranges on these? Sorry to keep.
They're higher volume, so they would be more 1 to 2 sets of 20 reps.
Right.
So you're kind of the low amplitude plyometrics, which is it's something that you want to train because you're developing your footwork and getting used to. They tend not to be something that's that intense or max effort, but you're working your footwork. So you do higher volume of that, but you'd kind of just be like, right. So one simple one is, right, pogo, the length of this track, which is 12 metres, walk it back, then we'll do a different variation, then a different variation. So it's one set, it's just good quality movement.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And you build, by the end of it, you've done 8 different movements of one set of each of them. So you're kind of then building that tolerance through different times.
There's a lot of that conditioning for the joints and tendons and all that
massively,
kind of stuff.
especially around the foot and the ankle complex. Because you think, again, especially in MMA, you're in your bare feet as well. So sometimes I get the guys to do it in bare feet as well, just to develop strength around the foot and the ankle.
Do you Olympic lift barefoot as well?
I don't personally. I like shoes, but some of the guys do.
Yeah, I've done that before, and you be careful with that, haven't you?
The only danger with that is you kind of if you're slipping or whatever, it can be, especially if you're doing it in socks. I wouldn't advocate doing it in socks or anything like that.
On a slippery
floor,
you're
trying to get something overhead and you're slipping on something. No. So I've always just done it in shoes, but it's kind of a personal preference thing a little bit.
That's interesting. When you see like these strength and conditioning coaches online and stuff, like the one that always sticks to me, gets a lot of hype, is that Speed of Sport guy. Do you know him, Nick Curson? What do you think of his stuff?
Yeah, I think it's good, mate. I think he's good. There is some good coaches out there, really good coaches, and like I said, everyone's got their kind of little niche with it. So my little niche, like I said, it was what we've just been explaining. So everyone's got their little niche. I'm not a big fan of the guys who try and reinvent the wheel. That's
all the cable turns and punching, all that bollocks.
Yeah, exactly. There's certain movements, like I said, you can do. So I do certain movements with the med ball and the band round there to develop stuff. I think Javonte Davis was doing a lot of that sort of stuff. So there is little elements of it, but my mindset. So there's a few guys that I've kind of seen that are really good, and they happen to be the guys that I have looked at and spent a lot of time analysing what they do. Funny enough, aren't in combat sports. There's a guy called Chris Barnard, Overtime Athletes. Okay. He's in America and he looks after basketball, American football and baseball. But his philosophy, again, is very similar. Because baseball is a very similar one to boxing because you're always standing in one stance, rotating one way, and then you're trying to create power, basically. So it's a very similar kind of static movement because you're just there, rotating. So punching, similar sort of thing. So there's a lot of transfer from those sports to here. So I've always kind of taken pieces of different sports and put them into the puzzle of how you can develop a boxer or an MMA fighter.
That's interesting, especially baseball. Have you ever been up close to a Major League Baseball player throwing a pitch by any chance?
Yeah, I went to the States in Texas to watch one.
I've been out there. Mate,
zing it.
Fuck me. When you're close to it, I say close to it, I was probably 10 metres away, you know what I mean? But close enough to go like, shit.
Yeah, but what's wild is they'll do it from here to the end of the room, which is like 20 metres, and it'll be hitting like a penny on the wall. Like it's that accurate. Like it's mental. So
well, someone was telling me
90 mile an hour at that speed and hit a pinpoint.
Well, I was going to say, someone said to me who's really into baseball when I was out there, like the fastest one I think was 102 miles an hour or something crazy. And they said like I might be butchering this for anyone who knows better, but like, you know, have you ever seen the baseball machines? They put the ball in, it pings it and they hit it. They've adapted them now because a lot of these top batters, they work on like watching the arm. So they've got like an arm lever thing that goes with it now before the ball pings. So it makes it better for them to...
because you can never... Because I've done those. I went to Japan and spent ages, because Japan love baseball, and I went there and just spent ages in a batting cage. So it was a bit of fun. And you quickly work it out. You're like, you try and swing, and if you're swinging once the ball's been pitched, you just miss it every time. So you've almost got to have like a bit of a kind of an idea and start swinging just as it's coming out if you swing before. And that's at 60 mile an hour. So 70 mile an hour. So if you think add another 30 mile an hour to that,
which is insane. I don't think you quite...
TV doesn't do it justice.
No, but nothing does. Like I'm sure you've been pro boxing. Like it's completely... I've watched boxing with mates before, like on TV, and they love it. And then I've been with them live, and they're like shocked. Like they don't box themselves, and they're like, this is a completely different thing. Like level of brutality. Any sport, if you see it up
watch
close.
Football game. Like, I was going to say... you watch it on TV, and everyone looks at it, and they're like, I could play this. And then you watch it live, and you're like, how quickly the ball moves, and you're like, fucking hell, these guys are shit hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing? Yeah, good, mate, good.
But we was talking about baseball then. We got way off topic. But take us back to MMA in terms of UFC. Who's your fighters that you're into, mate? Because there's some fights I want to ask you about that I keep asking people about. I'm going to keep asking until the fight happens. So
I've always been a Gaethje fan. I love Gaethje.
Had a tough go last one out.
Yeah, he did. I watched his YouTube series online. It's kind of he filmed his training camp one, and I've always kind of gravitated to that. Adesanya, I like. Is he? He's sick. Gaethje's my favourite because again, I like the character. I like who he is. I like it. I like the fact that they're kind of bringing out some of these kind of little mini documentaries online. You see what they're like behind the scenes.
It's cool because he's from Colorado. I've been out there. I've trained out there 3 times.
I'd love to go there. That's on my bucket list.
I've been in the gym he come from apparently, and he was like, and completely separate to where I'd been training all week. The Uber driver that picked me up to take me to the airport to go home happened to be one of his training partners, was like a semi-pro MMA fighter. So like we're chatting the whole way, and it was one of them, one of them trips you get to the airport, you're like, oh fuck it, do a little lap, we're having a good conversation. Anyway, so we're talking and stuff, and he said like Gaethje specifically, he said he never spars, he just fights. He said if you ever in a situation where you're back out here and you get the chance to spar with him, he said treat it like you're fighting, because he's going to come at you to like take your fucking head off.
Tough as nails, mate. That guy is a savage.
Yeah. Apparently he didn't say small, but he said he basically insinuated he's quite small for the weight. He said he's like for lightweight, he's not that big. He said he's but he's just like on it, and he's like hits like crazy.
He's like crazy. A fucking, yeah, you kind of you watch him train, you see all of that, and you're like, this guy is just
Yeah, I think he's one of them guys. I don't think he'll get the title. I think he's one of them guys that just can't
just the level below. Yeah. But he always puts on a hell of a show,
and everyone's always going to watch him forever.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a bit. Yeah, no, I've always been a big fan of him. I just I like the way he does it.
Yeah. Who's pound for pound the best MMA fighter?
Mate, that's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I asked it, bro.
It's got to be one of the Dagestanis, I reckon.
Oh, really? You're not going John Jones on it?
Well, John Jones, yeah. I mean, then again, he's the GOAT, isn't he? So it's a tricky one. Hey, mate. Jumping in the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, you're good. Say hello. We're good. We're all good. We're wrapping up. We're wrapping up now.
That's all right, mate. You're good.
We're asking the closing questions anyway, so it's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Prove that. Yeah, exactly.
That's all good. No worries. But so, most important question I'll ask you all day. I'm going to get to it in a minute, but I always ask before. If there's anything you want to plug, mate? Any sponsors? Any fighters got fights coming up? You want in the description below?
Yeah, a few of the guys have got Chanel's fighting in the PFL. PFL Europe Finals, so that's the big one coming up. A few of the other guys have got some fights. It's actually a fairly quiet period. We've just had a period of loads of fights recently, which is good. Got a lot of good wins. So yeah, that's pretty much it, mate.
Nice.
That's it, yes.
Good. Yeah, we'll put any links to you in the description below. We'll talk and we'll get that. But as I say, the most important questions coming, Brian. I think you're going to break my heart on this one. Which football team do you support?
The nicest club in the country, Fulham.
You almost feel sorry for him at this point, right?
It's not, mate. It's the most vanilla club.
Well, there's a follow-up question to that. I know where we are. We're relatively close to Fulham, but you're from the Peak District. How the fuck's that happen?
Yeah, mate. It's a funny story. My granddad. Back in maybe 1940, was playing football on Bishop's Park.
I thought he was going to say play for Fulham.
Oh no, he didn't play for Fulham, but Bishop's Park's right next to the ground. So he used to play there, and he used to go to the games after and all of that. And he'd been through and through. So then my dad obviously followed, and then my brothers followed.
Nice, that's a proper reason.
Followed. So yeah, it's a proper reason. It's not just because I live there.
I like that, I like that because I've had too many South London boys on here that support Liverpool, and they can, they're off the Christmas card.
One of my brothers is a Liverpool fan.
Well, your brother's off the Christmas card list.
Yeah, I know. Whereas we're like, well, let's support a proper club.
Yeah, proper club. The right answer was Chelsea, but never mind. We'll get to that another time.
Mate,
but mate,
Fulham finished above
I
Chelsea
really appreciate it.
I
was trying to shake your hand before you got to that, bro. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you doing this. I always finish with a fist up like this, mate. Squeeze the neck. Boom!